Hello guys, and welcome to another video. And this time we are focusing on that very important subject of mental health. So this is the kind of first in a couple of series where we'll talk to kind of, various people going through potentially various different parts of their life, different experiences and stuff like that. So I've got two people to join me. I've got Gareth Parker, who's the head of engagement at Centrepoint. Was also involved at the Homeless FA and someone I've kind of met through my football links. And we've also got Kev, who has been a big supporter of the Let's Make a Difference brand, was at our charity gala and even donated a prize. And his story is quite unique over the last few months as well, which I'll kind of let him kind of explain. But come to you, Gareth, first. I mean, obviously the lockdown happened in March, mid-March. It was a little bit kind of, we maybe back of our heads knew it was coming, but I think until it actually came, we didn't quite adapt to it. How's it been for you kind of personally, but also professionally?
I'll deal with the professionally bit, 'cause that probably is easier. I'll deal with that first. We, as a department at Centrepoint, we do a lot of young person facing activity. A large part of our engagement work is around practical engagement. So we use sport, the arts, food, technology, game. We do lots of different things which positively engage young people who are isolated, socially isolated, but also actually often very lonely already because they're in hostels. So we were doing a lot of activity, and I made the call quite early that I didn't think it was safe for these young people to be travelling across London in particular, when there was such a threat. So we suspended all of our delivery in March, I think the first quarter of March, and moved to very quickly to a virtual engagement platform where we thought that we needed to do something, we didn't know what. So all of our work is co-produced with young people. So we spoke to the young people we work with and said, what do you need? And worked with those people who are working frontline. And it was very clear that something was needed, positive engagement, positive activity. So we created a series of, we called them challenges, but ultimately they're activities which give young people that we work with a focus. We've done some fun ones, we've done some really exciting partnership ones. But bottom line is they're there to get young people physically and mentally active, and make them feel connected. Because I think that was the biggest challenge was a lot of the young people we work with are experiencing serious mental health problems. Homelessness is a multifaceted thing. It's not a one size fits all. So we've got complex needs there. So we've got to respect that. But at the same time, that disconnect, that feeling of social isolation was already there for a lot of young people we were working with, even before it became almost mandated that you would be isolated. So it didn't really require that much of a shift. The only thing is we had to obviously suspend program delivery. And I'm quite kind of proud, I think, of how agile we were quite quickly to get something in place, get loads of good people rallied around, including our football club, who got involved with quite a few of the challenges. Stuart, photographer, helped launch one of the photography ones. And it's that sort of stuff that we wanted to really seize on, the inspiring activity, the stuff where young people could get involved, but by doing so could feel connected to the outside world, and individuals who would inspire them, hopefully, to then use it as a transformative change process. But yeah, personally, it's a bit harder to explain because it's been a bit of a roller coaster. I suffer from depression, and it's called experiential anxiety. The easy bit of which is to say, don't want to get old, don't want to die. I'm aware that most of those things are happening or going to happen, but when you fall into what is quite a monotonous and almost like treading water all the time, it really challenged me. And so work was a positive focus, and I put as much into it as that. But it was a bit of a treadmill, and I kept ramping the speed up, and I knew that I was going to come crashing off it. So the other side of which, to continue with the treadmill analogy, kind of clumsily, I use running and fitness a lot to help with my mental health challenges. And so I have run and run and run and run. I think I'm averaging 50 miles a week at the moment. But again, without purpose. I race for my club. I have no races coming up. So again, it was adapting it to fit there. And I think talking, I have recently, relatively recently in life, realised how important it is to communicate when you're struggling. So I've asked for help. I've said to people that, do you know what? And I said to my board at one point, I was like, I can't continue on this treadmill. I am putting everything into this. 10 of my 14 strong team are furloughed. I'm going to have to ease off for my mental health. And they respected that. I think that kind of open communication, both in the workplace, but also with my friends, and actually that social network. That's how one of the reasons why we became Friendly Echo was through Twitter. And actually, although it can be dismissed a lot of the time as not real connection, I think I felt real connection with lots of people. So by talking on that platform, it allows people to often empathise rather than sympathise, rally around. So that's actually been ultimately quite a positive experience. I felt quite connected despite the physical disconnect.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on that social media front, I mean, we've done quizzes and charity quizzes and all that kind of stuff from, certainly back in the day and stuff. So I think it's, I think people that think social media is all bad and don't look at the positives are probably not using it correctly, I would say. But then I would say that because it's my day job.
One very quick thing, actually, and I think that's interesting. I think social media is returning to its roots a little bit at the moment. I think that's what we seized upon with these recent activities through work. Was it used to be predominantly for exactly that, social networking, bringing people together, bringing like-minded individuals together, and we've used it as that. And it's kind of, I think that returning to its roots has been kind of a key strength of the last few months, and it's enabled people to get that genuine feeling of connection rather than, as often gets sort of levied at it, a false connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kev, obviously your kind of stories are a little bit different, I guess. Start of the year, you were obviously fully employed and things like that, and then obviously things changed. So do you just want to
probably goes back a bit longer than that. So it probably goes back to June last year. So that was when my company made the announcement that they were outsourcing a number of departments, and therefore the office that we had was larger than required. So we'd be relocating. That was a bit of a shock. And that wasn't a small relocation. That was moving from near Gatwick to near Heathrow. And actually a lot of people were then given the opportunity to take redundancy and not move. I mean, that's over a year now, and it's just got to the point where people have now left and it's all done and dusted. But that year has been tumultuous for me. I started it in a stable employment, a fairly stable home life. I own a property with my ex and we were still living together, but we were getting on really well. Off the back of that announcement, I got into another relationship with someone in the office, and that wasn't great for me. I then found out that my housemate, my ex, was in a relationship herself, which was great. Again, someone she'd met at work, someone we both knew, so that was fine. But then I started to struggle and I was going downhill pretty fast. And I went from having she'd stated they were going to move because she was getting made redundant as well. So basically, we all went from being in a nice, stable, employed home life to everything kind of changing. And I knew that I would be losing my home because we were going to sell the flat. I'd be losing my place of employment and my job. This relationship that I was in, if you can call it that, was terrible, and that finished. And I ended up, work were really good. I spoke with my HR department at work. They had a really good employee assistance program. I ended up going for some counselling off the back of that, not for the first time. Saw my doctor again. And I ended up taking about 3 months out of the office just because there was no point in me being there. And it took a long time for me to kind of come to terms with all that, to kind of get back into the position of, right, I can control what I'm doing. End of February comes, I leave my job. I wasn't the only one. There was pretty much half my department was leaving. And I think probably 80% of the company were actually decided, we've either been made redundant because our jobs have gone or we don't want to relocate. So I had plans that I was going to take some time off. We were going to sell the property. I was going to look for somewhere near Arsenal, up near North London, near all my friends from that kind of area. And then boom, this comes out of the woodwork. And I think within 2 weeks of me leaving the company, we were in lockdown, and I faced the prospect of being on my own in a flat for the foreseeable future. The good thing was I'm still really good friends with my ex and her new fella who I'm friends with. They just bought a property near Norwich. She'd started work at the start of March up here. Again, she was employed for 2 weeks before lockdown, and she started working from home. And I actually came to stay with them from at the start of April onwards. So I was really lucky that I wasn't on my own for lockdown. We've got a garden here, which I don't got at home. We bought the cat up here, so I've got kind of company because if they're working and out. And then during that time, unfortunately, Ian, he's been made redundant as well. We were all at the same company. So in the last 6 months, nearly 70 years of service between the three of us. We've all kind of left and moved on. And that's probably been good for all of us because we can talk about that. But I've been really lucky that I've got people around me. And like you say, with the social media thing now, I mean, this is my umpteenth Zoom call over the last 3 months. I've been doing a weekly one with my brother and his friends just to have a chat.
Yeah.
Joining the AST ones. It's like you say, social media has been great for keeping those connections and what it's meant for. And I imagine that there'll be a lot of people out there who haven't been as lucky as me. And it must be tough.
Gareth, I mean, how have you been sort of keeping in touch with, I guess, people, or have you not? Have you kind of closed yourself away a little bit? Obviously, work has been intense, but...
Yeah, I think it's strange when, I mean, I often find it funny when Keith's talking about his job there, and my work, no matter what it's been, and we met years and years ago, again, and doing something similar, sort of sport for social change, but I give a shit about what I do. I care about it. It's part of me. I see it's part of my identity. And actually, my mum once kind of dismissed, how come you always manage to do jobs that are fun? I'm like, well, they're not fun. They're just in areas that I care about. So, and she's mainly talking about the fact that I've worked in football, music, comedy, areas which aren't interesting, but actually it's always been for social change, almost always been. So I cared. So when I was doing 16-hour days, I was invested in it. So I was getting that sense of fulfillment. Because again, without going too deep and meaningful, I think that life is all about connection. It's about, for me, fulfillment comes from genuine connection with people. I have a young daughter, and again, her mum and I are no longer together. And actually, my ex was furloughed quite early in this process. And I made a very tough decision at that point to say, do you know what? She can give our daughter 100% attention, which I can't. And I will, and the relationship we have isn't perfect, as in me and my ex, but it's a relatively positive one. And I said, we had a conversation. I said, listen, selfishly, I'd love to see more Grace, my daughter, but I don't think it's fair on her. So I decided to cut back the time I have access to her, or have her stay here. And that was hard because, again, that is a massive part of the fulfillment in my life. But as I mentioned in sort of first answer, I made that decision, sort of the second phase decision of like, do you know what, actually, as much as I care about work, as much as it is, there's people that I'm not seeing enough, there's people that I'm not connecting with enough. And my daughter was the main one. So we then rejigged it a little bit, still more in my ex-wife's favour in terms of seeing her, but I get that and I'm fine with it. But I am now having, and when I've got her, I'm giving her that attention, and we're able to, again, it sounds like a similar fortunate timing in terms of just before lockdown, me and my girlfriend completed on a property, like literally 2 weeks before. And we moved in end of February. And I am so grateful that it because we had been in between properties. We'd finished a tenancy, we'd been leasing, sold property with my ex, and I was like, right, I'm ready. We bought a house together, it's great. And we've been in a couple of Airbnbs, it'd been awful, but it'd been temporary. And that sense of that kind of purgatorial sense of relentlessly on the treadmill, looking at something you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
Had I not been in a place where I felt comfortable, I think that would have been a huge challenge to my mental health. But I go back to having a structure. I think these are all things that it's difficult sometimes when the structure is so monotonous. But again, I feel grateful that I've got a job that I care about. I feel grateful that I have a daughter who I can still spend time with. I think it's difficult because, without getting too political, I promise myself I won't. Yeah, anyone that knows me well will know that's quite difficult for me. But I have been appalled by how a lot of this has been handled. But I think what I've always been consistent, or tried to be consistent, was just keep that, be kind, show love, because actually there was a lot of, I think, emotion in all of this.
Of course.
And tearing, which I do, was tough because you start to feel it, absorb it yourself. But rather than be upset and angry all the time, and sometimes I've been a bit frustrated, I've tended to try and then take a breath and go, do you know what? Control the controllables. I say, within my world, this is what I can do. Yes, I will always, I sound a bit pious when I say this, I will always try and use my position to improve society. I think I find it baffles me when people, and I saw the stuff you're doing last year, Erica, with the gala and stuff like that, and it's great because people can make a big difference. I mean, you look at yesterday, the announcement, because Marcus Rashford decided to take the government to task. People can make a difference, and I think that's kind of make a difference in your own world. And I think that's what I've tried to sort of focus on over the last 3 months more than anything.
And that was our saying last year. Let's make a difference. Even if it's a very small difference, let's make a difference, because we all as human beings can, and I think collectively we certainly can. Just want to ask you both about kind of the economy going forward, because I think there's two things that probably do cause mental health, and one is actual sort of health, and one is money. Money is one of the most single factors which would and it's just interesting to kind of, you're both in different stages. But if I start with you, Kev, obviously you were made redundant. You thought you might enjoy the summer a little bit. And I know we spoke, and, lots of football was on the cards, and other sports and stuff. Yep. Obviously, hearing all these kind of stories about how the country's going to be in recession and paying back furlough and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Does it worry you a little bit, sort of going forward, thinking, okay, I do need to... You probably want to start working, I presume. But does it worry you a little bit?
If I'm honest, at the moment, I'm not too worried.
Okay.
So I got a nice redundancy payout. We're trying to sell the property in Reigate, which, funny enough, fell through during lockdown, which is kind of understandable. But it's back on the market, and we've already had viewings and second viewings. So
it wasn't Gareth buying your house, was it? That would be a really weird coincidence.
So, kind of rather selfishly, once we sell the house, I'm in no rush. I don't want to just live off my redundancy and the money from the house and my savings. I'd like to think that with my professional qualifications, so I'm SEMA qualified, chartered management accountant, I'd like to think I'd be able to get a job in that field. So at the moment, I'm not too worried. But once I start looking for a job and looking for somewhere to live, that may well change.
Yeah.
I think I'm fortunate. I've got people here in Norwich where I'm staying, and also other friends of ours from football that have always said, you come and stay with us. Yeah. So selfishly and personally, I'm kind of all right at the moment, but that that could all change once this all clears up and we're back to whatever the new normal is. It may well be different. I mean, I'm still looking on LinkedIn. There's plenty of jobs in my area that are kind of being advertised, but that's not to say that you're a shoo-in to get any of them, and there's lots of other applicants for them. So once I start actively looking, it might be a bit harder.
I think, sorry to chip straight in, but I think from kind of looking in from a general point of view, I'm recruiting at the moment into a role. It's a funded post, and the only reason I can get the green light to recruit into it because I've had budget cuts and huge things, because our projection as a charity is that we're going to have anything from 3 to 9 million gap in the budget. We are going to be far down from income this year. The impact on the economy cannot be underestimated from all of this, and this is why I'm going to be really sensitive, because I hear your positivity. But interesting, a lot of the conversations yesterday, and I got involved in a few debates after the U-turn on the free school kids meals, were a lot of people who I abhor anyway. A lot of people were saying people shouldn't have children if they can't afford, all that sort of stuff. And I was thinking to myself, I know, because I've read reports, studies, that you are only a couple of steps away from needing something. And in this sort of, in the economy as will be, there will be lots of people who would have thought, I will never find myself experiencing homelessness, who will. There'll be plenty of people who would have thought, I will never need myself to claim benefits, who will. And I think that, and this is, we go back to the be kind thing, and that's what always worries me. And again, God, I've veered into politicals again, but the idea of having a government, and listen, there's been certain things within the last 3 months that have been done okay, but it's been done after the matter, I feel, a lot of it. It's been done because, hey, it needs to be. I quite love the fact that kind of they've been forced into socialism, but that's not going to stay. There will be one of the most crippling periods of austerity coming up. And actually, and it's funny because you can't remove yourself from it. So I'm aware that it will have an impact on me. I work in the charity sector, much to the chagrin of my dad, who always used to say, you could earn a lot more working elsewhere. I'm like, I don't want to. And do you know what? We do still get paid. And anyway, I think that job security is a big thing for myself. And I am confident, because furlough scheme has been used to try and keep Centrepoint more financially stable. We are cutting budget in other areas to make sure that we do not need to make redundancies. And I'm confident that my job will be safe, and my team, I'm fighting hard to make sure that no one is going to be lost in all of this. But for me, actually, it's the bigger picture again. Like, I know, I've already seen, one of the reasons why we came up with this challenge accepted activity was suicide rates in services started to pick up. Mental health needs in services started to pick up. More and more young people were phoning our helpline, who were finding themselves on the streets almost immediately. And then you hear news around domestic abuse charities seeing a spike in calls. And it is the destabilizing nature of COVID-19. It's not one thing or two things, it's so multifaceted. And I think that this is where some of the things that have happened over the last few months give me hope that people have rallied around, that there has been huge examples of positive humanity, but it requires a society set up to enable us to do that. Otherwise, God, yeah. See, I'm about to go off on a rant about, I read that Jacob Rees-Mogg should have paid 1.3 million or something last year in income tax, but it's Cayman Islands. Like this, it requires scrutiny. We could, as a country, be running away, paying 90 fucking grand or 900 grand to pimp up Boris Johnson's plane. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's things that could be done.
Just to bring us back to this, as we haven't got too long left. I guess my sort of last kind of question, I guess, is that, you know, that potentially be people watching this, and obviously, you know, some of our charities kind of send it out to members and stuff like that, could be probably out there maybe struggling at the moment a little bit. I want you guys to think about maybe your lowest moment you've had and how you kind of got through it, which then provide tips for people to get through their lowest moment, which might be now. So I'll come to you, Gareth. I think you seem like you've kind of thought about that a little bit while Kev's still thinking. But
I mean, my lowest moment was contemplating taking my own life. Simple as that, which is not something, and I used to be scared to even say that out loud because it was such a scary point to come back from. But interestingly, my doctor at the time said to me, you suffer from this condition, you are depressed. And the reason I know you're depressed is your life is good, yet you feel like this. You have a wonderful child, you have a great job, you have friends, you have perfect, yet you feel empty. And it was like, all right, I heard it. But there's certain points, I even tweeted about it, I think yesterday, that last week I was low again. And I'm aware of my condition, so I'm aware that there will be points that I will feel, there's no cure, there's things you can do to help cope. And actually, one of the things that I'd recommend anyone feeling low does is read Matt Haig's Reasons to Stay Alive. Because Matt Haig's Reasons to Stay Alive puts into words, I think quite emotional for me, puts into words a lot of what I felt. A lot of, it shines a light on certain things. And there's an amazing chapter, and it's something that I'm going back to again and again and again, and they're about people who are successful with depression. And there's always the line, so-and-so is successful despite suffering from depression. And Matt Haig's thing is like, no. People are successful because actually it allows you to see things different way. You feel things differently. You are more sensitive to certain things. You're more empathetic. And actually that was what I would say is like, first of all, talk to people. That for me is the most powerful thing. Like you can ever, that tipping point between having it all on yourself and sharing is huge. But yeah, I'd say read Reasons to Stay Alive, read all the things you can and just enrich your life to a point that, yes, there'll be times where it feels bad, but then you can talk to those people. You can ask for help. And then, yeah, selfishly, like in terms of like, I'm a bit of an advocate for, and I joked about the running. Actually, it's not, I'm not running.
It does help.
But it's huge, like physical health. Yes, you get the endorphins, you get everything else, but you also get a feeling. I'm a member of a running club, connections. Yeah. There's a lot of people in that club that have gone through similar things. I've spoken out a few times at certain things about it, and I'd always get loads of messages saying, that's so brave, I wish I could. I'm like, well, chat to me about it, man. Like it shouldn't be a stigma. And I think what we need to do more and more is remove that stigma and enable people to talk, because actually it's an illness, and it's an illness that people can absolutely talk about.
I mean, I've found a bit of exercise has done wonders just generally. You feel a bit better about yourself as well, and you get a bit of a boost as well. I think it motivates you. So I completely agree. Kev, anything to add? What's your kind of...
No, I think talking is the fundamental thing that you have to do. It doesn't matter who it is, you just have to talk to someone. And I've got to the point now where I'm really lucky. I've got a great group of, I've actually got probably 2 groups of friends that I can do that with. So one is like the Arsenal group, and I love that group of people. It's so diverse, and it's people from different backgrounds, but there's so many people within that group that have probably had or have issues, and you can talk to people of a like mind. The other one, my brother and his friends, one of their mates killed himself 2 or 3 years ago, and it was tragic. He had a young wife, young baby, but that brought that group of friends so much closer together, and I feel like a part of that now. We talk, we have a weekly Zoom call, we have a quiz, but we also get together every year to commemorate his birthday and have a beer. We also get together every year to commemorate when he died, and we get together and have a darts tournament, things like that. But you have to talk to people. And I'm really lucky, my last probably 2 or 3 GPs, I've been able to just walk in there and just talk, and it's like you say, they say, but hang on, you've got a decent life, you're employed, you got all these music gigs, you got football, you got all these friends. It's you have to talk and you have to ask for help, because it's not going to be handed to you on a plate. There's no kind of magic switch or magic wand that's going to fix you. And the exercise thing, I remember last summer, so just after the announcement at work, and I was really low and I wasn't sleeping. And I would, it's lovely when the weather's great, I'd get up early in the morning and I'd go for a walk or a run around my local park, and it just makes you feel so much better.
I got soaked running, but that was also quite refreshing. I think to add that is there's going to be lots of extenuating circumstances now. There will be more stress and anxiety because of what is going on.
Of course there will.
So there'll be people who have been, a friend of mine reached out yesterday saying, I know you suffered in the past, I never thought I'd be that, but it's layering on and layering on. And I was like, dude, call me. Like, it really is, as I say, the talking thing, but we have to be sensitive. We have to look around us. There will be friends of ours who will be on the face of things fine, but underneath all of it, and it will get worse. The worse the economy gets, the worse job cuts, homelessness, all these things, it will add up. Just, we've got a pandemic on.
Yeah.
People are dying.
And I think you have to reach out. As a sufferer myself, I always try and reach out. I know I've got friends that suffer. I always you check in with them. You make sure they're doing okay. It's just talking and just noticing. And it's like you say, there'll be people that put a really good front on it, but you have to reach out. And as a sufferer myself, you also have to kind of force yourself sometimes just to get out and do something. It's horrible. Middle of winter, you don't want to go out. You want to stay in bed. You don't want to go to work. When I get to the point where I don't want to go to football or go to a gig, then it's bad. But and as hard as it is, you have to just try and force yourself just to get out of bed sometimes.
I mean, hopefully once you're there, you're surrounded by your friends.
You're stuck in, but if you don't do that, you're stuck and you get stuck in a rut and you kind of...
situations because of an anxiety, and it's all part of, listen, it's CBT therapy. It's like that sort of low mood triangle where you, because I've also been through all manner of therapy, but actually you can pick little bits from all of it and use it. And one of the things, again, is like, actually, I've not gone, again, we're talking about Arsenal, we've got how many hours, 3 hours till kick off now? But I've obviously not been going to that, and that's where I see some of my friends, and that's where I have it. And so that's gone. So that, I think, working a little harder at those things that would be normally part of the fabric of society, like what you'd be doing.
Yeah.
So maybe working a bit harder. But I think that it's key just to always check in.
Just to sort of summarize, but also just to add, kind of, in sort of my culture, and being from an Indian background, that there is something that I think it's the worst thing in my culture, and it's something called an ego. And an ego sometimes stops you from contacting someone, and sometimes it's because maybe you've made a bit of an effort a few times but then haven't got anything back, and you kind of just, your ego then tells you that actually why should I bother? But it doesn't go as far as thinking, well, maybe that person is struggling with other things or has other issues. And I think we've all got, at the moment we are fighting one of the biggest things we've ever fought, a pandemic, COVID-19. I think to not be united, I mean, funny enough, you'll both appreciate this, but Arsene Wenger used to say, when, in his last kind of 5 years, when obviously there was a lot of debates and some fans were with him, some fans weren't, and we'll leave that conversation there. But generally, he used to say the world's hard enough as it is. If you're not in it, if you're not united and in unity, you might as well give up. And he said this at every AGM that I went to. It's the same thing here, isn't it? If you're, as a group of friends, group of family, just human beings, if you're not in it together, then what chance have you got? So I think, for anyone listening, I think it's the best advice I can give from maybe slightly outside is, reach out to people, have that chat, use this. I mean, for me, I've used the lockdown. I mean, I've got a fairly busy life, got big families, my sort of other half's family and stuff. But not being able to see anyone and actually being home has made me kind of have Zoom calls with people that I haven't, text people, email people, reach out, and actually I've seen that as a positive. So yeah, hopefully anyone listening who is struggling will reach out to someone maybe, but even if you're not struggling, it doesn't mean it's not your problem either. You know, mental health is everyone's problem, and you never know when you might struggle. So I think even if you're not struggling, you know, that's good, but help maybe people that are, I would guess. So on that note, I'm going to let you both go. Really, really, you know, grateful, and I would like to thank you for sharing your stories. I think these kind of things only work if people are honest, you know, and you know, you can get kind of polished PR people to come in and tell stories, but yeah, they don't have the same impact. So thank you. Kind of good luck, I guess, for the next kind of, you know, this part of the lockdown, because ultimately until social stuff start happening, we are still in lockdown. So, you know, good luck with obviously Centrepoint, Gareth. Good luck, Kev, and hopefully I'll see you both soon at football one day when we're back allowed.
It will happen again.
It will do.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, Akil. Cheers, Gareth. Thanks. Bye.